There we go. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Hopefully you can hear me okay and see me okay. I might turn my camera off for a bit. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll get started in a few minutes here. Just to let everyone know, if you want to just keep an eye on the webinar chat during this session, you won't be able to actually type into it, but we have our panelists that are going to be dropping in some knowledge-based article links and just some resources today. And if you do have any questions, we have a Q&A. So you should be able to see the Q&A section at the bottom there. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask during our email automation class today, our masterclass webinar today, and our panelists will answer the questions in the chat. Okay, once again, this is our email automation masterclass. This is not going to be too in-depth or too complex. I would say this is mainly going to be for beginners or anyone that just wants to learn more about automations. I will be going over some things that are basic, but also going more in depth into everything like triggers and steps and all of that. So you might hear some things that you already know, and it might be repeated, and you might learn some new things. But just so everyone knows, this will be more of, I would say, beginner oriented, so nothing super complex when it comes to automations, but we will be sharing just a lot of general information. Okay, looks like we're 2 minutes past, so let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining me today. This is Email Automation Masterclass. Once again, any questions during the session can go in the Q&A, and keep an eye on the webinar chat as well. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Just quick intros. My name is Harmony. I'm a customer education specialist here at MailerLite. I work with the knowledge-based articles, the tutorials, and I also host these webinars. Been working here for a couple years now, so just looking forward to sharing information, hopefully clearing up any doubts you might have about how to use automations, what they are, anything like that. And yes, the session is being recorded, so I will be sending out a follow-up email to everyone who registered with the recording of the session, as well as just sharing all of the resources. So you will receive a recording. Okay, and just to go over the agenda, one of the first things I will be talking about when it comes to automations is use cases. So this is just going to be what automations are, essentially what they are used for, the different ways you can use automations. You might have been told that automations are useful, that you should be building them, but you might not be sure what exactly for. So I will be giving a couple examples. There are many, many ways to use automations, and you can really be as creative as you want. But I will just be going over some kind of general popular ways that automations are used. So such as to welcome new subscribers, re-engagement campaigns, as well as birthdays or subscriptions, anniversaries, anything like that. I will be talking about how to set up a lot of these things. That goes into the next section. I will be going into the automation demo itself. Again, this will be a little more on the basic side. I'm not going to be talking about anything super complex here. I'll be going over triggers, not just what they are, but each one, what they do, how to use them, what they mean, all of that. Same thing for the steps. So I'll just be talking about each step, what it is, again, how you would use it, all of that, just how you would build the sequence, recommendations, kind of best practices for how to use those steps, all of that. And then I'll also be talking a little bit about e-commerce, not too much, but we do have e-commerce automations. So when I talk about triggers and all of that, I will be going into the e-commerce side a bit because I know some of you might have e-commerce connections. So we're talking about that. And then lastly, activity and analytics. So once you have set up an automation, you've built everything, it's running, people are going through it, it's, it has activity. How do you check everything? How do you check where subscribers are, what has been completed, what hasn't, if they've been removed for some reason, all of that. So I'll be talking about that towards the last section. And then I'll just be answering any remaining questions and then sharing our our knowledge base as well as our academy course on automations. All right. Okay, let's talk about just the absolute basic question is why use automations? What are they? Why are they useful? Why are we even talking about them? Automations are different to campaigns. They are very similar. You know, automations include emails within them, but automations are sequences of different steps. Okay, so they can be email steps, action steps, different kinds of steps, but they are sequences. And they are triggered by a specific event or action taken by a subscriber. That can vary. There are many different ways to set up those event or actions. That's what I'll be going into when I talk about triggers. But this is the main thing with automations. They are sequences that start with a specific event or action by a subscriber. Whereas a simple email campaign is, of course, a little bit different. It is a standalone email newsletter. So when you're in the campaign section, you build a campaign. You either send it out immediately or you schedule it for a later time, and that's it. There's no kind of sequence, follow-up, or any kind of action the subscriber has to take. You send out the email yourself. Whereas, again, automations are based on what subscribers are doing and their actions. When to use automations. So this is what I'm going to go into some use cases. What are the kind of popular best practice ways that automations are used? But again, there are many, many different ways to use automation. So you can really be as creative here. One of the ways is, of course, a welcome series. And I would say if you have never built an automation before, if you are 100% new to all of this, this is a really good place to start, is building a welcome series. Usually every email newsletter can include a welcome series, no matter what industry or subject you are talking about. If you have sign-up forms or you are just onboarding subscribers in any type of way, it's just a way to say hello and introduce yourself, your business, what you do, maybe, and anything else you might want to share. If you are sharing resources, like let's say you have a PDF that you are trying to share with subscribers, if an email like this, a welcome series, is a great way to share that resource. It is the first thing subscribers will see when they subscribe to your email list. And there are lots of different ways to set this up, and this can be very simple. It can be just a trigger and an email. So welcome series is definitely I would say, one of the main ways automations are used. And I will talk a little bit about this when I show automations. Another way is birthday wishes or birthday emails. I think we've all seen these when our birthday comes up. Sometimes you get a lot of emails, and that's usually because when you submit your information to that newsletter, you enter in your email. I mean, you enter in your birthday, and they keep that information. And I will show how to actually set it up so that when the birthday of a subscriber comes up, an email is sent automatically. That's what the birthday automations are. Someone is not sitting there looking at everyone's birthdays and sending an email. It is the system itself checking the birthday and then automatically sending out an email on that when that day comes up. Post-purchase follow-up. So this is when we get into e-commerce. Of course, you do not necessarily have to have an e-commerce connection or anything to set up a post-purchase follow-up. That is simple. But when we get into the e-commerce automations, there are lots of different options for this. So this can be setting up an email sequence when someone purchases a specific product, or they purchase a category of products that you have in your store. Or also abandoned cart emails are very, very popular. I'll also be talking a little bit about that as well. But abandoned cart emails is another way to just engage subscribers who maybe are interested in your products but haven't fully committed yet. So there are lots of ways to engage subscribers with post-purchase follow-up emails. And in the e-commerce industry, this is a huge thing. This is different to, say, transactional emails. So we're not talking about things like, resetting your password or those kind of more admin type of emails. These are emails that are triggered again by a purchase or something related to that. Okay, re-engagement campaigns are another very big and very popular way to use automations. This is when you have certain subscribers that maybe are becoming inactive. They haven't opened your emails in a long time, 6 months to a year plus. They are not really engaged. Maybe they just have kind of fallen off on your list. And typically when it comes to engagement and deliverability, we do recommend to unsubscribe subscribers that have been inactive for a while to remove them from your list. It actually is better for your overall deliverability. But before you just remove subscribers from your list, it is always good to try and re-engage them. And one of the ways to do that is with an automation. So you can do this by getting knowing those subscribers who are inactive and sending them through a sequence of emails that kind of tries to re-engage them, tries to reintroduce yourself. And if they do not open any of those emails, let's say if they are still inactive after receiving 2, 3 emails trying to get their attention, you can automatically unsubscribe them in the automation itself. It all happens automatically. So you try and re-engage them, it either works or it doesn't. And if not, they get unsubscribed. I'll talk a little bit about how that works in a minute. Event reminders, another one. This could be for anything. This could be for a physical event in person. This could be for an online event, a webinar, anything. Webinar platforms usually do have their own kind of automatic, again, those transactional emails. But this is the marketing side. This is when you can send more information. You can customize things. You can add surveys, collect feedback. There's so many things you can do with the campaigns themselves and event reminders. So anything that they have signed up for. All right, that is basically it when it comes to the use cases. Again, there are many, many different ways to use automations. These are kind of just the general ways. Let me go ahead and go into automation demo so I can show you the different parts of an automation. Okay, specifically triggers, steps, activity, and history. Again, this will be more on the basic side, not too basic. I'm not just going to read everything and talk about what it is, but more really explain how to use all of these different areas, different functions. So you can really learn how to then build your own automation for what you want to do. A lot of times when customers reach out to, say, a support team or they have questions for us, they will want to know, how do I do this specific, I guess, like funnel in my mind. I have this campaign I want to run, but I want this to happen after the email opens. They have all these ideas, and usually the answer is an automation. So by learning what each of these are, you can learn how to really build whatever it is that you want. So let me go ahead and just move over to MailerLite here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, you should be able to see my screen here. I'm at the dashboard, MailerLite dashboard. And of course, let's just go straight into automation, and that is what we are talking about today. So there are lots of different things to start talking about here in the beginning. One thing here is we have different sections based on whether your workflow is in the stage of still being built or whether it has already been built and has been completed. So you can see here we have the workflow here. This one is not on, but it is fully completed. And then over here we have drafts. So these are all of the workflows that we have started. Maybe we've just added, one step, but it's not a full automation yet. It will not fully work. Whereas all the automations in the workflow section, we could turn on and activate if we wanted because they are working. Whereas again, these are all of the incomplete. So let's go ahead and build a new automation from scratch. I will just build from scratch, but I'm going to talk about all of the other ways as well. So we have lots of different templates for automations. You can see here, and these are some of the categories that I already mentioned, retargeting subscribers, that's the re-engagement campaigns, event reminders, e-commerce, all of that. Templates are great, again, if you are getting started and you want to build an automation quickly without having to really know, how to anything too complex. This is our simple welcome email. This is what I mentioned, where it could be as simple as the starting event and the email. Nothing more than that. This is a great place to start. If you're just getting used to automations and you want to build a welcome email, this is a good template. It has already the structure, and then you would just build the email itself, which I will talk about more. Retargeting subscribers, again, slightly more complex, more steps involved, but you do have just the full template here, and then you could just add in, customize the emails and everything. Most of the templates are available on a free plan. A lot of these are available on a free plan, but you can see here some of them are available for only advanced, which have the label, and some are only available for e-commerce. So you have to have a WooCommerce, Shopify, some type of e-commerce connection to use the ones that have the e-commerce label. But let's start from scratch. Start building. Okay, now we have the blank slate, the blank editor here. So, of course, the first thing we are going to start talking about here is setting up a workflow trigger. This is how to begin the automation. This is the event that the subscriber has to take in order to enter the automation, in order to start the workflow. All of the options are here. The most simple and most popular, most widely used is definitely this one. When a subscriber joins a group, this will trigger the workflow anytime a subscriber joins the group that you choose. So you can choose more than one, or you can just choose a group here. So you can choose multiple. You can also exclude as well. So let's say that I want this workflow to be for these 3 specific groups. I also want to exclude subscribers. So let's say I also want to exclude paid subscribers, right? What does this mean? This means that if subscribers join any of these groups, they will enter into the workflow unless they are also part of the paid subscribers. So if they are part of paid subscribers and demo group, they are excluded. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So you can do something like that. This is an advanced feature, but you can add multiple triggers, multiple ways for a subscriber to enter the workflow. I will talk a bit more about that. Again, when it comes to groups, there is not a specific way, really, a subscriber has to join the group to enter the workflow. They can enter the group manually by you selecting Add Subscriber to Group. This can be when they join a group by submitting a form. A certain form adds them to a group. They're added to the workflow. you import a list of subscribers, an entire CSV of subscribers, and you add them to a group. That will, again, also can trigger the automation. So this is not a specific way that they enter the group. It is more just if they join a group, a specific group, whatever, they enter into the automation. Okay. Again, with the multiple triggers, I will explain that after I go through these. Another very simple trigger is when a subscriber completes a form. So this is, again, very simple. These are all of the forms that I have in my MailerLite account, pop-up, embedded forms, any sign-up form. So let's go with this one. And this is all it is. When a subscriber completes that form, they enter into the automation. That's it. It is not going to be anything group related, no other forms. It is not landing pages in general. It is that specific form for that automation. Okay, we also have when a subscriber clicks a link. So this is a link in any of your email campaigns or automations. So this is not any link anywhere on the internet, okay? This is specifically a URL in your campaigns or automations. So that can be outside of anything you built, here I have nothing, I have no links here, but I might have a link in a previous campaign that I've sent, and I want to trigger this workflow when that specific link is clicked by a subscriber. All I would need to do is enter that URL right here. And again, this is not any link anywhere. It is specifically a link in a campaign or an automation that you already have in MailerLite that you've already sent in an email campaign. Okay, going next to the updated field. So what is updated field? What exactly does that mean? For this, I will actually want to show another section of the app, but this basically is when information for your subscriber is updated or changed. Any information. Their email, birthday, any custom fields you have here. And to get a better idea of this, let me actually just exit this workflow. Go into subscribers. And show you what I mean by fields. This is what I mean by fields. So fields are going to be here, but every subscriber has information about them. And if we go to this toggle columns, we can show different fields here. I'll just pick some random ones, not too important. Okay, these subscribers won't have too much information, but let me just choose somebody. These are all of the fields, okay? This is all of the information for your subscriber. Their name, city, phone number, state. This is all e-commerce related, right? But this is all what I mean by fields, by custom fields. So if any of this information is updated or changed in any way, that can trigger the automation. Okay, so I just wanted to show, so I'm not just saying, the word subscriber fields without actually really explaining what that information looks like in MailerLite. Let's continue editing our sequence here. Okay, we are back. And we were talking about this one, updated field. So that is what I mean by updated field. You can also create a new one. So if there is a field that you don't have yet and you want to create a new one so that in the future, if that field contains information, it's updated, whatever it is, they will trigger the workflow. Or you can just select one that is already there. This works very similar to creating a segment. So when I say that this works when a custom field is changed, it's really changed in any way. It can be if it contains a specific word, does not contain, is equal, so it's a specific match to anything. Is set or is not set just means, does it have anything in it at all, or yes or no? So it doesn't even matter what it says, it just has some kind of information. There we go. So if I were to keep this as is, updated field dietary preferences set, that would mean that anytime dietary preferences has any information in it at all, that will then start the workflow for subscribers. And lastly, I'll talk about these two. Excuse me. Talk about these two here. They are similar, anniversary of a date versus exact match of a date. Similar, but slightly different, and they do cause a bit of confusion, so I do want to explain these. Let's go with anniversary of a date first. So there is a little description here. But anniversary of a date, one of the ways to think about this is the anniversary of a date does not take account of the year, okay? So that is different to the exact match of a date, which does count for the year. Because an anniversary happens every year, right? So whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, subscription, maybe renewal, whatever it is, if it happens on the same day every year, that is where you would use this. So it is not a specific day, month, year. It's more the day, month that matters. Let's choose our groups that this will apply to. Again, you can choose multiple. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing sometimes. We are not necessarily just selecting any day, of course, right, for this workflow to be sent. We want to choose what field this workflow will pay attention to, essentially. So if I'm setting up a birthday campaign, I have a field called birthday. This would mean that when I create a sign-up form, when I upload subscribers, import subscribers, whenever a subscriber is added to my account, I am somehow asking for their birthday and entering that information in. So I have dates in that birthday field. Of course, there will be a year that the person was born, but that is not what this will take into account. It will just look at the month and day. And then you can select exactly what time that you want this to be sent out. And that is it. This will send out a birthday email on the day that that comes up. So you are not choosing a specific day. When the month and day matches, the workflow starts at this time. That is different to the exact match of a day. Which again, the main difference is this takes account of the year itself. Once again, choosing groups that this will apply to. And this is a very similar look to what we just saw. You choose the field. You can change this to be on, before, or after. Let's keep it to on. And let's go with subscription date. Again, choosing time. But this does not repeat every year. This is a specific day. So the confusion that I see sometimes here is people will see that there's a trigger exact match of a date, and they go, okay, so I can just enter in a date, and that is when the workflow will start. But not the case. This is again dependent on subscribers and the information that they have in their fields. Okay, so you're not choosing a date. When the specific day, month, year comes up, workflow is started at this time. Okay, once again, the date is dependent on what information is in the field. So what is the subscription day? What is the graduation day? What is the birthday? June 7th, 1996, whatever. So obviously that day will not come, but you get my point is the specific day, month, year. This will not be for birthdays, but again, that is the main difference between those two. One other thing I will talk about, certain triggers, not all of them, have this option. Allow subscribers to repeat the workflow. So what does this mean? When enabled, they can trigger the workflow once every 24 hours. So let's say I choose my group. A subscriber can be added to a group more than once in different ways. They could submit a form more than once and be added to the same group twice, 3 times. You can manually add subscribers to a group multiple times. Basically, it is very possible for subscribers to leave groups and rejoin them. And this allows you to decide whether you want subscribers to repeat this workflow when that happens. So you might not want the subscriber to go through the entire sequence again just because they rejoined the group. Or maybe you do. It depends on what the workflow is, of course. That is what this option is. If the option is checked, then subscribers can repeat the workflow. So they can go through it once and then be removed and then enter it again. Whereas if this is unclicked, they go through it once, they do not repeat at all. Again, it's only for specific fields, or specific triggers, not every trigger has this option. All right, that is basically it when it comes to triggers, how to start the workflow. Again, when it comes to multiple triggers, I wanted to talk about all of the triggers first before I talked about this. You can add multiple triggers if you are on a paid advanced plan. This allows you to just choose more than one way that a subscriber enters the workflow. You can choose up to 3. So that way you do not have to create multiple automations for the same, group, essentially. You can just have it be like this so that when any of these things occur, I'm just choosing some options here so we can see what happens. Here we go. Now you see I've chosen 3 triggers. So now these are all ways that subscribers could potentially enter this automation. If any of these events happen, the workflow will start. And let's keep going. Let's add more steps, lots of steps to workflows. The most used, of course, that we'll talk about, email step. Wherever there is an email step, an email is going to be sent. Okay, subscriber lands on the email step, email is sent out at that moment. Here you can configure everything about what that email is. This is the internal name. Subscribers do not see that. This is our subject that they do see. Sender name, sender email. Design email takes us right into this area. We can choose templates, or we can just start from scratch with the drag and drop editor. And I'm not going to be demoing our campaign editor, but this is everything you are used to seeing when creating a normal campaign. You can add and do everything here you would normally. and then click Done Editing. And you see here that the email that we've just created is now there. Have some options to track opens, of course, and click Save. So this is already an automation. This is as simple as an automation can be. I did add multiple triggers, but in a way, you can really just have one trigger and one email, and that is an automation itself. It doesn't have to get any more complicated than that. Of course it can. Let's add more emails. So here I have just added 2 emails back to back. As I mentioned, wherever there's an email step, an email is sent. This would look like if I were to leave this like this, an email would be sent here and here right after, one right after the other. They would receive both emails essentially at the same time. We most likely do not want to do that. So let's talk about delay steps. Delay steps are very important because otherwise, again, because of the way these sequences are, a subscriber can just go through each step, one right after the other, and there will not be any pauses at any point unless you add delay steps. So what this looks like, let me choose an amount of time. Days, hours, minutes, specific times. Let's go with hour. No, let's go with days. Let's go with 3 days. Save. Now, what did I just do here? I put a 3-day delay in between 2 of these emails. So now they will not receive these 2 emails back to back because that would be annoying. This email will be received first. Then they will sit at this step for 3 days. After 3 days, second email is sent. And this is the exact same what we just saw. So we would design the email, our follow-up here. Okay, let's go ahead and add a bit more. Let's talk about conditions. So when I talked about re-engagement campaigns, for example, where we want to check what subscribers are doing when it comes to opening campaigns, clicking certain links, just overall being engaged with what we are sending, conditions are how you would determine that, set that up. Just one use case, but that's an example. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that this is a re-engagement campaign, okay? And I sent these 2 emails to try and say, hey, you haven't opened in my emails in a while. Do you still want to know about my products, my service, all of that? We sent the first email, 3 days passed, we sent the second email. So what if they haven't engaged with these emails at all? We can maybe assume that they are still not engaged and they don't want to be subscribers anymore. But how do we determine that? That is conditions. Conditions are similar to when you create a segment and you are setting a rule. You are setting up a specific rule here, a specific filter, a checkpoint in the automation. Let's go with, well, there's different options here. I'll talk about 2. I'll talk about group membership. Let me pick a group because this is quite simple. Now I've created a condition that will check if when a subscriber gets to this step, the condition will check, are they a part of this group? It's a yes or no question. Based on that answer, they will go down a different branch of the automation. But I was talking about re-engagement. So let's talk about campaign activity, or I'm sorry, workflow activity. This means I'm looking at what has happened in this workflow that I'm building. Internal name, that was the email, that's this one. Internal name was opened. Okay, now what have I set up? A condition that will, when the subscriber gets to this point, it will check if this email was ever opened. If it was opened, we go down this path. If it was not open, we go down a different path. Let's say that if a subscriber did not open that email, I want a specific thing to happen. When I talk about what that is, I am talking about action steps. Action steps happen within your account. So this is many different options here. Updating custom fields, copying to a specific group, moving to a group. Difference here, moving to a group is taking away from one group, placing in another. Copying to a group is keeping in one group, adding to another. Removing, marking as unsubscribed. Sending an internal email notification, again, that is within your account, or if you want to send an email to yourself, or move to another step in the automation. Let's just go with move to groups for this example. So I am choosing an action. Because I chose move to group, I want to choose the group that they were in and the group that they move to. So now you can see what I've done here. Email is sent, 3 days pass, second email is sent. Condition checks if the first email was ever opened. If it was not, if that email was not opened, the subscriber is moved from our monthly newsletter group to our inactive subscriber group, as an example. Okay, that is what an action step essentially does. Now, what if they did open the email? Let's talk a bit about A/B testing here. A/B testing is similar to A/B testing for forums, A/B testing for campaigns. You want to test something. You want to send different versions to see which gets more engagement, to see which one works. If these are the inactive subscribers, let's go ahead and do some testing with our active subscribers, right? So here you can set up the split test. Very similar if you've ever set up a split test for campaigns. It will look similar kind of to this, where first you select the traffic. So how many subscribers are going to receive version A? How many are going to receive version B? We'll just go with an even, roughly even 50-50. And you can set up the two options here. The two options for the A/B test will be different emails or different delays. Maybe they receive two different emails. Maybe one side receives an email, the other side just sits at a delay. This can really be as creative, as complex as you want it to be. The main point here is that subscribers will not go through all of these steps. It is dependent on the traffic distribution here. Then they will be set on the different paths based on that. And then they can continue from there. Very, very last thing is webhooks. I will not be going too much into webhooks. It gets a little bit more into when you are talking about developers working with webhooks, but you can include that in automations. Certain integrations as well will also offer webhooks that you can add to our automations. So depending on certain apps that you connect with, if you are seeing webhooks, some of that might apply here. It really depends. That is a very different world. But if you do want to add webhooks within your automation, that is possible. There is that step. You just add the webhook URL right there. Secret key. We do have some information right in here that will lead you to our developer documentation. So if you need more information there. But there we go. I've just built an automation. It kind of makes no sense, but you can understand where we started, how we added our emails, why we added delays in between the emails, what A/B testing is, what it does, why we would even want to use it, excuse me, as well as action steps that will do things internally within our account, moving groups, unsubscribing, sending internal notifications, anything that happens within our account, and webhooks. This is also a very new thing. This webinar, we moved it forward a few days because we very, very recently released a feature that allows you to actually rearrange steps by dragging and dropping. And this was not possible before. This was just released very, very recently as of a couple of days ago. Right now, it is only for certain steps. And of course, you can only move steps to certain places that make sense. But let's say I've created this entire workflow and I want to kind of change things up. In the past, I would have had to delete steps and recreate them. But now I could just use these icons in the upper left corner and just simply move them around. You can see how easy that was. Now I've just added these two emails back to back. You can see when I start to drag, the area where I can move the step shows there. And maybe if I can't add an email or a step in a certain place, it will tell me. So if I want to move this webhook step around, webhooks can't be placed just anywhere. So you can see I actually can't drop it certain places. That's to keep the overall function of the automation working. So that's a really great new feature that is, helps you just edit things a lot more simple. Right, that is basically it for building an automation itself. This automation is incomplete because, of course, I still have emails that are not done. This email has no information. There's nothing here. This delay is not set. Some of this information is not done. So because of that, I cannot start the workflow. Subscribers cannot start entering this automation. They cannot trigger it. If a subscriber does any of these things, nothing will happen because the automation is off. It is incomplete. In order for any of this to work, I have to complete, the steps that have missing information, turn the automation on, and that is when they go through the sequence. Okay, we have about 10 minutes left here before we're kind of ending the session. The last things that I will go into before kind of going back to the presentation and just sharing some resources, answering some bigger questions that have been asked, is now that we have built the automation itself, how do we see what's going on with it? Let's go here. So this would be in the workflow section. And let's go into the overview. This automation has no stats, but that is okay. We can still just see what it would look like. This is where we can see everything to do with the automation. We can see an overview of what has been open, clicked, unsubscribed, bounced, all of the campaign stats. We could see monthly stats over periods of time where subscribers are engaging from. Email clients, this is like Gmail and things like that, and all of the workflow emails themselves. So if we have multiple emails in a workflow, we don't have to actually really go into the workflow to edit those or look at those. we can just look here, and that allows us to view the individual campaign reports. So now we're seeing campaign reports for just individual emails. So this is the exact report that you would see normally for a campaign. Opens, clicks, all of that. Let's go into activity. This is where subscribers are in the automation, and not as simply as location, like they're on this step. It is more an overview of what their status is in the automation. Queued. Queued means they are waiting at a delay step. So you saw how in between two emails, I put a 3-day delay. When subscribers are sitting there at that 3-day delay in between, they are considered queued. They will show up here. As soon as they move on, they're no longer queued. They're not going to be here. But this is where you see subscribers that are waiting at delay steps. They're in the middle of the automation somewhere, just waiting for the delay to pass. Completed is self-explanatory. They have gone through the steps and they have finished the very last step of the automation. So if the last step in the automation was an email being sent, once that email is sent, it is considered completed. They land here. If the last step is they're added to a group, again, once that happens, completed, added here. Whatever completed means in context of your automation, that is where they will land. Canceled and failed are similar, slightly different. They both mean that the subscriber was removed from the automation, but depending on why they were removed, they will end up in either canceled or failed. It really depends on the reason. Cancel tends to be a little bit more manual. So let's say that you yourself turned off the automation, and that's why certain subscribers were removed. Failed tends to be other things that happen in the background. Let's say a subscriber unsubscribes in the middle of the workflow. So of course, if they unsubscribe halfway through, we're not going to continue sending them anything. They are considered failed at that point. So they'll end up here. And you see, we do have an option for reason. So that will show why they were removed. So I recommend to check this if you have not really looked at this, because a lot of people will build their automations, let them run, have everything going. And there might be subscribers that have been removed that are not where they should be, that are repeating steps, whatever it is, it's not going the way it's meant to. Again, automations, of course, should work, but depending on a lot of different factors, things can be changed. So this is where you would check all of that to see what is happening. And lastly, history. There's no history because nothing has happened here, but this is where you would see what has happened when it comes to the edits of the automation. So if an automation was paused, edited, restarted, that is where you would see the report here. So this is not so much activity for subscribers. That's, of course, over here. This is how the automation itself has, what has happened with it. All right, that is basically everything I wanted to go over. Although I do realize I did not talk too much about e-commerce. Let me just briefly show that, because I did say that I will be talking about that. So let me just show what I even meant by e-commerce. Everything I've showed is our automations in MailerLite. So if you have an account with MailerLite, you are building automations, everything that I showed is what you will see. E-commerce only applies to those that have e-commerce connections. Shopify, WooCommerce, PrestaShop, anything, any of our e-commerce connections, if you have that, then you will have e-commerce workflows. You can select which shop if you have more than one. And then you have these new triggers that are different from what I showed before. These are the post-purchase ones that I mentioned. This is the abandoned cart, purchasing any product, purchasing a specific product in the store, or purchasing from a category. This is, of course, all dependent on your specific store, what the products are, all of that. But if you already have connected your store to MailerLite, this information will be there. All right, that is all I wanted to just mention, that that is an option for those that have e-commerce connections. We are at a 5-minute mark. Let's go ahead and just return back to our presentation here. But thank you so much. We are basically done with sharing information at this point. Hopefully this was not too overwhelming or sharing, too much. We went over triggers in depth, steps, each one, activity, what it really is, what it looks like, what it means, and history, what you would see going into that section. I want to talk briefly about the fact that we do have an automation masterclass in the MailerLite Academy. This is if you really want to learn more about automations. If you want to learn more about everything that I talked about, this is a course. This isn't a 6-month course. You can get through it within a day or two. It is free, completely free. The lessons are short and mostly video. So there are text lessons as well to follow along with, but it's a lot of video. And this really goes into automation. So if you want to learn how to truly get the most out of building sequences, workflows, this is where I recommend to check out. And I will go ahead and send that link in the chat. I will just also mention, let me grab that link so I can send it for you. I will also mention that when you complete the email automation course, you do receive a certificate of completion. So that includes the course name, your name, all of that. So going through all of the courses, that is what you will receive at the end. Again, that is completely free. And the link, I will add this, of course, into our follow-up email for anyone that is interested, but I also just added the link in the chat as well. That is to check out our free email automation masterclass, certificate of completion at the end. And if you are ever been curious about our MailerLite experts or getting into that at all, this is how it is usually done. MailerLite experts are paid experts that can help with a range of things. So someone maybe setting up their account could hire an expert to help them do that. They are not hired through MailerLite. They are essentially hired through third parties like Upwork, things like that. But in order to even be considered for this, you do have to attend the academy and earn that certificate. So that is just an incentive, as I mentioned, why we do offer our academy. We do offer these certificates. It allows you to then become a MailerLite expert, access to then help if you want to then do that for others, or just to really just learn yourself, of course. But I just wanted to mention all of that. All right, we are basically at the very end here. I am done sharing information. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. Let me just check if there are any questions that I can answer here. Okay, great. I'm happy to see that it looks like everyone, for the most part, was happy with the session. So again, thank you for joining. Again, highly recommend check out the course. This is not a very intense, you have to commit and, go for 6 months and pay all this money. It is free, even if you just want to go through a couple lessons. It's quite useful. Great. I think most questions have been answered. Thank you again to our panelists for that. All right. Thank you again. I will be sending out a lot of information in the follow-up email, this recording, lots of knowledge-based article links, the Academy course link, and all of that. So all of that will be in the follow-up. Thank you again for joining, everyone, and we will see you in the next ones. Thank you. Bye.